She should have left Monte Carlo that night. Instead, Elena Rossi ordered another glass of wine, and 9 months later, she was holding 2 babies she never planned for and a man she couldn't forget. But let me back up to the moment everything changed. The private VIP terrace at the Casino de Monte Carlo was exactly the kind of place Elena didn't belong. The Mediterranean breeze drifted through open archways, and the vintage Bordeaux she was nursing cost more than her round-trip ticket from New York. She sat alone at the marble railing, her phone still warm from the call that shattered what was left of her composure. Sophia's voice, trying to sound brave, telling her the specialist had denied the surgery application again. The experimental treatment that could save her sister's life was slipping further out of reach. And Elena was drowning in debt she'd never be able to clear. She was the woman who always had a strategy, who built her career on finding errors in ledgers, who never made reckless decisions. But that night, she just wanted to forget she was the anchor for her entire family. She wanted one night where she wasn't the person everyone depended on. That's when he walked in. Tall, sandy-haired, tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, and looking like he just escaped a prison sentence. And maybe he had, because when Julian Thorne sat 3 seats down from her at the outdoor bar, tension radiated from him like heat off the pavement. He ordered a scotch, neat, and stared at it like it held the secrets of the universe. Elena should have looked away. Instead, she said, "Rough night." He glanced over, and those green eyes hit her like a physical force. Tired, yes, but also sharp, calculating. A pause, then a wry smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. "The kind where you're questioning every responsible decision you've ever made?" He laughed, low and genuine. "Then we're in the same boat." He picked up his glass, moved to the seat beside her. "I'm supposed to be inside at my own engagement gala right now." She raised an eyebrow. "That's either very romantic or very concerning." "Considering I didn't know I was engaged until she announced it to 500 people 2 hours ago, I'm leaning toward concerning." He took a drink. "Business partner decided we should merge our conglomerates. Apparently, that includes our gene pools." "She announced your engagement without asking you? Power play." "She knows I won't make a scene, won't embarrass the investors involved, so here I am, hiding on a terrace instead of celebrating the future someone else chose for me." Understanding flickered across Elena's face. Her entire life was obligations she hadn't chosen. "It's lovely to meet you," she said, though she didn't know why. They were strangers in Monaco. "Likewise." He extended his hand, and when she took it, something electric passed between them. Not just attraction, though that was immediate and undeniable. It was recognition. 2 people suffocating under the weight of everyone else's expectations. "Hey readers, welcome to Romance and Reverie. If you're new here, join our community by hitting that subscribe button. And if you've been reading but haven't subscribed yet, come on. Don't just watch, belong." They talked for an hour about nothing and everything. He told her about growing up in the spotlight of his family's dynasty, about building a tech empire he was now losing control of. She told him about Sophia, about the crushing math of the medical system, about how she spent her life finding other people's hidden assets but couldn't solve her own deficit. The wine made her honest. Or maybe it was the way he listened. Really listened, like her words were currency. "What if we just forget it all?" he said suddenly. "Just for tonight. No names, no reality, no consequences. Just 2 people choosing something reckless for once." She should have said no. The responsible version of herself, the one who woke up at dawn and balanced checkbooks and never took risks, was screaming to walk away. Instead, she met those green eyes and said, "One night. After all, whatever happens in Monaco stays in Monaco." He smiled. Real this time. And something in her chest shifted. "Then let's make it count." When he kissed her, It felt like falling and flying at the same time, like a freedom she'd never allowed herself. She didn't know that one reckless night would change everything. She didn't know she was already falling in love. Dawn broke over the harbor in shades of lavender and gold, streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the hotel suite. Elena woke first, her body still warm from Julian's beside her. He was sleeping peacefully, one arm stretched across the space where she'd been. He looked younger in sleep, free from whatever burden had drawn those lines around his mouth. Reality crashed back like a tidal wave. She had a flight in 3 hours, a life waiting in New York, bills that wouldn't pay themselves, and a sister who needed her. This was supposed to be just one night, an escape, a moment of recklessness in a life built on responsibility. But lying there watching him sleep, it felt like something more, something dangerous. Elena dressed quietly, her hands shaking as she buttoned her blouse. Every part of her wanted to stay, to wake him, to see if whatever burned between them last night could survive the daylight. But she knew better. He had an engagement waiting downstairs. A life as complicated as hers was struggling. This was Monaco. What happened here stayed here. She found a piece of hotel stationery on the nightstand, scribbled with a gold pen. "Thank you for letting me be reckless." She left it on the pillow where she'd slept, and walked out before she could change her mind. Julian woke to an empty bed, and a note that felt like a gut punch. The suite was silent except for the distant sound of waves. He read the note 3 times, searching for something more than a goodbye. A number, a name, anything. His phone shattered the quiet with 17 missed calls. Isabel, his PR team, his board members. Isabel had leaked their engagement to every major European outlet. The announcement was everywhere, complete with photos from last night's gala, her hand possessively on his arm, spinning a story about love and partnership and the future of Thorn Global. The regulatory meeting had been moved up to next week. Victor Vance was already circling, ready to exploit any weakness, any crack in Julian's armor. His assistant, Claire, arrived within the hour, tablet in hand, damage control mode activated. "You need to go through with this," she said, not unkindly. "Marry Isabel, or Victor will use the instability to dismantle everything your grandfather built." Julian agreed numbly, but his mind was elsewhere. On a woman who signed her name with just a letter, on a night that felt more real than anything in his carefully constructed life. 6 weeks passed like a fever dream. In New York, Elena stared at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test, then at the second test, then the third. Twins. The doctor confirmed it with an ultrasound that made her world tilt on its axis. She was terrified, alone, with no way to contact the father. She didn't even know his full name, just the memory of his hands and the way he'd looked at her with those intense green eyes. She made the decision alone, like she made every decision. She would handle this. She always did. In Monaco, Julian went through the motions of his engagement like a man underwater. Charity galas with Isabel's hand in his, press releases about their upcoming wedding, board meetings where he smiled and nodded while slowly losing control of his own company. Every night he stared at that stationery note, wondering about E. Then Victor Vance launched his hostile takeover. The emergency board meeting was called for a Friday morning. Thorn Global's conference room filled with lawyers, board members, and regulatory officials. Julian sat at the head of the table, Isabel beside him, wearing her engagement ring like a weapon, when the door opened. The new external auditor from the International Oversight Committee walked in, professional in a charcoal suit, leather portfolio under her arm, dark hair pulled back. Elena Rossi froze mid-step. Julian's entire world stopped. Their eyes met across the boardroom and the air turned electric. Recognition, shock, something deeper that neither could name. Isabel's gaze snapped between them, sharp and suspicious. You two know each other? Elena recovered first, years of professional composure sliding into place like armor. We've never met, she said smoothly, extending her hand across the table. Elena Rossi, Senior Forensic Auditor. I'm here to review Thorne Global's financial records as part of the regulatory compliance investigation. Her hand was steady, her voice was cool, but when Julian shook her hand, that same electric current from 6 weeks ago shot through both of them, and Elena pulled away too quickly. Julian was reeling. The woman from that night was here in his boardroom, and she had a name now. Elena Rossi. She was the auditor who would determine whether his company survived Victor Vance's hostile takeover, and she was looking at him like he was a stranger. The meeting dragged on for 2 hours. Elena presented her audit timeline, requested access to financial systems, asked pointed questions about corporate structure and offshore holdings. She was brilliant, Julian realized. Sharp and methodical, catching discrepancies that others missed. She never looked directly at him unless necessary, and when she did, her expression was perfectly neutral. But he saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped her pen just a little too tightly. When the meeting finally adjourned, Elena gathered her materials quickly, clearly planning to escape. Julian caught her in the hallway outside his office, his hand gentle but firm on her elbow. We need to talk. She pulled away, glancing around to make sure they were alone. There's nothing to discuss. It was one night, Mr. Thorne. Mr. Thorne? Like we're strangers. Like I haven't memorized the sound of your laughter, the taste of your skin. Julian, he said, voice low and rough. My name is Julian, and you know it, and we have everything to discuss. You're engaged. Her voice was cold, professional, but he heard the hurt underneath. That night was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. He stepped closer, desperate to make her understand. I looked for you, Elena. I wanted to find you. I had my people search every hotel registry, every conference attendee list. Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Hope. But she crushed it quickly. Well, you found me. Congratulations. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. She turned to leave, but 3 steps down the hallway, she stopped. Her hand went to her stomach, her face paling. The portfolio slipped from her grip. Julian caught her before she could fall, steadying her against him. Elena. She took a shaky breath. And that's when he saw it. The subtle changes he'd been too shocked to notice in the boardroom, the slight fullness in her face, the way her suit jacket didn't quite button comfortably, the exhaustion shadowing her eyes. Are you? He couldn't finish the question. Her silence was confirmation enough. Are you pregnant? The question came out softer than he intended. Panic flashed across her face. It's not yours. The words hit him like a physical blow, but something in her eyes didn't match her voice. Fear, maybe, or desperation. Elena, it's not your concern, she said firmly. I'm handling it. He studied her face, saw the trembling in her hands she was trying to hide. When's the last time you saw a doctor? I have an appointment next week. You're pale, dizzy, and you almost just collapsed. His voice was gentle now, not accusing. Let me take you to the hospital, just to make sure you're okay. I told you it's not. I don't care whose it is, he interrupted. You're not well, and I'm not letting you walk out of here alone, please. Maybe it was the please. Maybe it was the genuine concern in his eyes. Or maybe it was the bone-deep exhaustion of carrying everything alone for so long. But Elena nodded. Julian took her to Princess Grace Hospital, stayed while they ran tests, held her water bottle when her hands shook too much. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, just sat beside her in the emergency room like he had every right to be there. The doctor confirmed what Elena already knew. 10 weeks pregnant, twins, healthy, but she needed to manage her stress levels and eat regularly. After the doctor left, Julian handed her the discharge papers without a word, walked her to his car, and drove her back to her hotel in silence. It was the gentleness that broke her, the way he'd held her elbow when she stumbled, the way he'd asked the doctor questions she'd been too scared to ask, the way he hadn't demanded anything, just stayed. "They're yours," she whispered as he pulled up to the hotel entrance. "The babies. They're yours." Julian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He turned to face her, and his eyes were bright with something she couldn't name. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're engaged, because you have a life I don't fit into, because I'm not marrying Isabel," he said, the words coming easier than they should have. "I never wanted to. It was a business arrangement, a power play. She announced it without asking me." "And what do you think this would be?" Elena's voice cracked. "Another business arrangement? I'm not your responsibility, Julian. I'm not some problem you need to manage. I can handle this alone." "You shouldn't have to, but I will. I always do." "Not this time." He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "I can't be the reason you blow up your life," she said. "I won't be." "You already are." The words hung between them, raw and honest. "Elena, I'm going to be a father to twins, with you." Before she could respond, movement caught her eye. Isabel stood outside the hotel entrance, watching them through the car window. Her smile was sharp as a blade. She tapped on the car window, and Julian had no choice but to step out. Elena followed, legs unsteady, still processing everything that had happened at the hospital. "So," Isabel said, circling them like a predator. "The auditor investigating my fiancé is carrying his bastard child. How very scandalous." "Isabel, this isn't—" Julian started, but she cut him off with a laugh that held no warmth. "Save it. I've been waiting for something like this." Her eyes glittered with malice. "You want to know the truth, Julian? Victor and I have been working together for months. The engagement was never real. It was access. Access to your files, your passwords, your company secrets. Everything Victor needs to bury you in this takeover." Julian's jaw clenched. "You've been stealing from me." "Not quite," Isabel said, examining her manicured nails. "And here's how this works. You sign over controlling interest to Victor quietly, or I leak everything. The pregnancy scandal, your auditor sleeping with the investigation target, all of it. Her career will be destroyed. Yours will be in ruins, and those children," she gestured dismissively at Elena, "will be born to parents with nothing." Elena felt the ground shift beneath her. Everything she'd worked for, her reputation, her career, gone in one headline. But Julian stepped forward, placing himself between Isabel and Elena. "No," Isabel blinked. "Excuse me?" "Do your worst," Julian said, voice like steel. "I'm not giving you my company or my life." For a moment, genuine fury flashed across Isabel's face. Then she smiled, colder than before. "You'll regret this, both of you." She turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the coastal heat. Julian reached for Elena's hand. "We'll fight this together." And despite everything, Elena believed him. The next morning, Elena arrived at Thorne Global's offices before dawn. If Isabel and Victor thought they could threaten her into silence, they didn't know who they were dealing with. She'd built her career finding patterns in chaos, uncovering fraud that others missed, and now she had every reason to dig deeper. Julian had granted her full access to the company's financial systems, something that made her both grateful and uneasy. She was supposed to be an impartial auditor, But there was nothing impartial about carrying a man's children while investigating his company. Still, the truth mattered more than optics right now. The first anomaly appeared in the VIP acquisition records. Small discrepancies in the data logs, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. Elena pulled up the client database and cross-referenced it with financial transactions. That's when she saw it. A shadow system running parallel to Thorn Global's legitimate operations. Someone had embedded software in the VIP registration process. Every time a wealthy investor checked into their resort properties, their personal information was being harvested. Social security numbers, bank account details, credit card information, even passport scans. All of it funneled through encrypted channels to offshore servers. Her hands trembled as she traced the digital footprints. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was systematic identity theft on a massive scale. She worked through the morning, coffee growing cold beside her, pulling thread after thread. The stolen identities were being sold on dark web marketplaces to criminal organizations worldwide. The money came back through an intricate web of shell companies disguised as consulting fees and marketing expenses paid to Victor Vance's various business entities. The numbers were staggering. Over $200 million laundered through Thorn Global systems over the past 3 years, and Julian had no idea his company was being used as a criminal front. Elena was so focused on the financial records that she almost missed the secondary file buried in the encrypted server. A folder labeled Insurance Claims flagged. Curiosity made her open it. The spreadsheet contained thousands of names. Victims whose identities had been compromised, whose credit had been destroyed, whose lives had been systematically dismantled. She scrolled through, her heart sinking with each entry, until she saw a name that made her blood run cold. Sophia Rossi, New York, USA. Her sister, her sweet, resilient sister, who was fighting for her life while drowning in medical debt. Elena's vision blurred, the mysterious credit cards that appeared in Sophia's name. The sudden insurance cancellation that Sophia's doctors couldn't explain. The medical bills that multiplied impossibly. It wasn't bureaucratic error or bad luck. It was this. Victor and Isabel had stolen Sophia's identity, destroyed her credit, canceled her real insurance, and left her to suffer. Elena? Julian's voice came from the doorway. Are you okay? She couldn't speak, just turned her laptop toward him, showing Sophia's name highlighted on the screen. Understanding dawned across his face, followed by fury. They did this to your family? They've done it to thousands of families, Elena said, voice shaking, using your company's reputation as cover, and they planned to frame you for all of it. She showed him the rest. The evidence trail designed to make it look like Julian had orchestrated the entire operation, fabricated emails with his digital signature, falsified authorization codes. When Victor's takeover bid succeeded, he would discover the fraud, expose Julian as the mastermind, and position himself as the hero who saved Thorn Global. There's more, Elena said, pulling up another encrypted folder. We weren't random, Julian. That night we met wasn't coincidental. She showed him the files. Isabel had hacked the auditor's conference registry weeks before the event. She'd seen Elena's credentials, her reputation as one of the best forensic investigators in the field. She'd known Elena was staying near the casino. Isabel arranged for me to be at that bar, Elena said, the realization making her sick. She knew you'd be there, escaping the engagement party. She orchestrated our meeting. Julian stared at the screen. Why? Blackmail. Elena opened the final folder, and they both froze. Photos. Dozens of them. Julian and Elena at the bar laughing, walking through the terrace, kissing in the elevator, all time-stamped. Professional quality, taken by someone who'd been following them all night. She was going to use these to force you to sign over the company, Elena said. Threatened to leak a scandal about your secret affair. But then I got pregnant, and that made it even better for her. Now she can claim you hired me before the audit to manipulate findings. She can destroy both our careers and send us to prison for fraud. Julian's jaw clenched. She's been planning this for months. Years, Elena corrected, showing him the earliest financial discrepancies. The identity theft operation has been running since before you even knew Victor was a threat. Isabel's been inside your company the whole time, building this trap. They sat in silence, the weight of it crushing. Then Elena noticed something else in the server files. Communication logs between Victor and names she recognized from Interpol watch lists, organized crime figures, international fraud syndicates. They're connected to something bigger, she said. This isn't just corporate fraud. Victor has ties to criminal organizations across 3 continents. They're the ones buying the stolen identities. Before Julian could respond, the office door opened. Isabel walked in, immaculate as always, her smile predatory. Still digging, Elena? You always were thorough. She perched on the edge of the desk. Found the photos yet? They're good, aren't they? Especially the ones from the elevator. You destroyed my sister's life, Elena said, standing. You've destroyed thousands of lives. Isabel shrugged. Business is business. You should have stayed in New York. This ends now, Julian said. Does it? Isabel's smile widened. Those photos are time-stamped. I'll prove Julian hired you before the audit to manipulate findings. You'll both go to prison for fraud. Your children will be born while their mother is awaiting trial. She leaned forward. Or you sign over the company, and everyone walks away clean. After she left, Julian and Elena stared at each other across the devastated office. She used my company to destroy people's lives, Julian said quietly. And she used us to cover it up. Elena looked back at her screen, at Sophia's name, at the thousands of other victims, at the evidence of a criminal conspiracy that reached far beyond a corporate takeover. Then we make sure she pays for it, Elena said. All of them. They worked through the night, compiling evidence into a comprehensive file for Interpol and the banking authority. Elena's photographic memory, the same skill that made her one of the best forensic auditors in the world, allowed her to navigate the encrypted servers with precision. She memorized access codes, server locations, backup protocols, everything they'd need to prove the conspiracy. By dawn, they had enough to bury Victor and Isabel for decades. Wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, racketeering. The evidence was irrefutable. I'll take this to the local authorities this morning, Elena said, backing up files to a secure drive. Then to the commission. They'll freeze all of Victor's assets before he knows what hit him. Julian pulled her close, protective. I'm coming with you. You need to stay here, keep everything looking normal. If Victor suspects we're onto him, he'll run. She touched his face. I'll be fine. It's a government building. What's he going to do? What Victor did was wait until she left the Thorn Global building. Elena was halfway to her rental car in the underground parking garage when she sensed movement behind her. She turned, reaching for her phone, but strong hands grabbed her from both sides. A cloth covered her mouth and nose, chemicals sweet and suffocating. She fought, trying to scream, but the world tilted and darkened. If you've made it to this point of the story, it means you're hooked. Now, tell me, is it fair that you haven't subscribed to join our community? Subscribe now so you don't miss out on what happens next. Also, check out the pinned comment. Let's have a little interaction. When consciousness returned, Elena was in a windowless room that looked like a server facility. Banks of computers hummed around her, casting everything in blue light. Her hands were zip-tied to a chair, and her head throbbed where she'd hit something during the struggle. Victor Vance stood in front of her, expensive suit, immaculate, expression cold. "You're very good at your job, Miss Rossi," he said. "Too good. You found things that were supposed to stay buried." "The police know I'm here," she lied, testing the zip ties. They didn't budge. "No, they don't. Your rental car is currently driving to the airport. Your phone sent a text to Julian saying you needed space to think. Technology is wonderful." Victor crouched to her eye level. "Here's your problem. Those encrypted servers you've been digging through? They have biometric access and rotating encryption keys that change every 6 hours. And according to our IT forensics, someone with a photographic memory has been navigating them without writing anything down." Elena's stomach dropped. She'd been so careful, but she'd underestimated how closely they were monitoring their own systems. "You have the current encryption keys memorized," Victor continued. "All of them, which means you're the only person who can access those servers right now to wipe the evidence before it cycles to new keys that even we can't break." "I'll never help you." Victor smiled, and it was the smile of a man who'd anticipated every move. "Isabel said you'd say that." He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. Sophia leaving her New York apartment, unaware she was being watched. "Your sister is still struggling with those medical bills, isn't she? Be a shame if something happened to her. Or—" his eyes dropped to Elena's stomach. "If those are born prematurely due to maternal distress." Fear, cold and sharp, cut through Elena's defiance. "You wouldn't." "I've destroyed thousands of lives, Elena. What's 3 more? Victor gestured to the servers. "Unlock those systems and wipe them clean. Every backup, every file, every piece of evidence. Do it now, or you and your unborn children disappear. We'll dump your body somewhere in the Mediterranean, another tragic missing person case. Julian will spend the rest of his life wondering what happened to you." Isabel entered then, carrying a laptop. "Make this easy on yourself," she said, setting it in front of Elena. "Type in the encryption keys, initiate the wipe protocol, and you walk out of here. Your sister stays safe, your babies stay safe, you go back to New York and forget any of this happened." "And if I refuse?" Victor pulled out a gun, checked the chamber with casual efficiency. "Then we find out how much pain a pregnant woman can endure before she cooperates. I'm betting not much." Elena's mind raced. The encryption keys were changing in 4 hours. If she could stall, the keys would reset, and they'd lose access entirely. But 4 hours was a long time when someone was threatening her children. She thought of Sophia, of the twins growing inside her, of Julian back at the office, probably just now realizing she'd never made it to the police station. "There are 27 different encryption keys across multiple server networks," she said slowly. "It'll take time to input them all correctly." "Then you'd better start typing," Victor said, pressing the gun against her temple. "And Ms. Rossi, if you try anything clever, if you input even one wrong key that triggers a security lockdown, I'll know, and you'll regret it." Isabel cut the zip ties on Elena's right hand, leaving her left still bound to the chair. She pulled the laptop closer, fingers hovering over the keys. She could do this. She could input the codes, wipe the evidence, and walk away. Keep herself and her babies safe. Or she could fight and risk everything. The gun pressed harder against her skull. "I'm not a patient man, Ms. Rossi. Start typing." Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard, but before she could make a decision, Victor grabbed her arm and hauled her to her feet. "Actually, change of plans. We're moving locations." They dragged her through a service corridor to a waiting SUV. 20 minutes later, Elena found herself in an abandoned construction site on the cliffs on the outskirts of Monaco. Half-finished luxury condos looming around them like a concrete graveyard. The server equipment had been hastily relocated here, humming in the skeletal building. Victor checked his watch. 3 hours until those encryption keys reset. Let's try this again. He circled her like a professor giving a lecture. You think this is just about Monaco? We have operations in London, Dubai, Hong Kong, hundreds of millions in stolen assets across 3 continents. Thorn Global was just the most profitable hub. Isabel leaned against a support beam, examining her nails. Julian was supposed to be easy to control, a lonely heir desperate for connection, trapped by family obligation. Then you got pregnant and complicated everything. She looked up, eyes cold. Though I'll admit the kids make excellent leverage. Elena felt rage cut through her fear. You preyed on people's trust, used their moment of joy, winning, celebrating to steal their lives. My sister almost died because of you. Spare me the morality, Victor said. In this city, everyone's running a con. We just run it better. What Victor didn't know was that Elena had prepared for this possibility. Before leaving Thorn Global that morning, she'd set up a dead man's switch. If she didn't check in every 30 minutes, her compiled evidence would automatically forward to Interpol, the banking authority, and every major news outlet. She'd also activated a location tracker embedded in her watch, a security measure she'd implemented after a previous investigation turned dangerous. The 30-minute window had passed 20 minutes ago. I'll type your codes, Elena said, buying time. But I need water first. Dehydration isn't good for a pregnant woman, and you need me conscious. Victor nodded to one of his men, who retrieved a bottle. Elena drank slowly, watching the seconds tick by. Outside, the sound of vehicles approaching made Victor tense. He moved to the window, cursed viciously. Police, how did they? Because I sent them everything before you grabbed me, Elena said. Every file, every transaction, every stolen identity. It's already in federal hands. Isabel's composure cracked. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. I'm betting you have some very urgent calls from your offshore accounts right about now. The commission froze them 30 minutes ago. Victor grabbed Elena, gun to her temple. Then you're my insurance policy. I'll delete everything. They'll never prove it. Already proved it, Elena said, voice steady despite her racing heart. Blockchain backup. Every transaction, every stolen identity, time-stamped and encrypted where you can't touch it. Even if you wipe your servers, the evidence exists in distributed networks across 50 different nodes. You can't delete what you can't reach. The tactical team burst through multiple entry points simultaneously, red laser sights cutting through the dusty air, and there behind them was Julian, his face a mixture of fury and relief. It's over, Victor, the lead officer called out. Weapon down now. Victor's grip on Elena tightened. I walk out of here, or she dies. Julian stepped forward, hands raised. You hurt her, and there's nowhere on earth you can hide from me. Elena met Julian's eyes across the dusty space, and something passed between them. Understanding. Someone cocked a gun, and Victor's attention flickered to the officers, his grip loosening just slightly. That's when Elena moved. She dropped her weight suddenly, exactly as the self-defense instructor had taught her years ago, breaking Victor's grip and throwing him off balance. The gun discharged into the concrete floor, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The tactical team swarmed in like a breaking wave. Red laser sights cut through the dusty air as agents shouted commands. Victor tried to grab for Elena again, but Julian was already there, pulling her away, wrapping her in his arms as federal agents forced Victor to the ground. I've got you, Julian said into her hair, his voice shaking. I've got you. You're safe. Victor and his men were subdued within seconds, zip-tied, and read their rights. 27 counts of wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and racketeering. The agent reciting the charges seemed to take particular satisfaction in the list. Isabel tried to run. She made it 3 steps toward a back exit before Claire, Julian's assistant, who'd been waiting outside with backup teams, tackled her to the ground with the efficiency of a rugby player. That's for the fake engagement announcement, Claire said cheerfully, holding Isabel down until agents could take over. I've been wanting to do that for months." Isabel was hauled to her feet, her designer suit now covered in construction dust, her perfectly styled hair disheveled. For the first time since this began, she looked rattled. "You'll never make the charges stick," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The lead officer smiled. "Ms. Rossi's evidence is the most comprehensive financial fraud documentation I've seen in 20 years. You're going to prison for a very long time." As they led Victor and Isabel away in handcuffs, Elena sagged against Julian, adrenaline finally crashing. He held her tighter, one hand protectively over her stomach where their twins were still safe. "It's over," he whispered. "It's really over." But the relief was short-lived. An ambulance arrived within minutes, the paramedics insisting on immediate medical evaluation. Julian climbed in beside Elena, refusing to leave her side, his hand never letting go of hers as sirens wailed through the winding streets of Monaco. Princess Grace Hospital's emergency wing moved with controlled urgency. Elena was rushed to an examination room while Julian paced outside, terror clawing at his chest. The gun had discharged so close to her. She'd been restrained, threatened, her stress levels catastrophic. What if the adrenaline had harmed the babies? What if his children paid the price for his failure to protect them? When they finally allowed him in, Elena was already on the exam table, hospital gown replacing her dust-covered clothes. Her hand reached for his immediately, gripping tight enough to hurt. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." He kissed her knuckles, pulling a chair close. "But they're strong, like their mother." Dr. Moreau entered, efficient and kind, explaining the protocol. Ultrasound first, then vitals, blood panels to check for any complications from the trauma. Elena nodded mutely, and Julian felt her hand tremble in his. The ultrasound gel was cold. Elena flinched when the transducer touched her belly, and Julian's other hand found her shoulder, steadying her. The screen flickered to life. Grainy gray and white images that meant everything and nothing to Julian. Dr. Moreau worked in silence, moving the wand across Elena's abdomen with practiced precision. Seconds stretched into agonizing minutes. The only sound was the soft hum of the machine and Elena's shallow breathing. Julian couldn't read the doctor's expression. Professional. Neutral. His heart hammered against his ribs. Then Dr. Moreau smiled. "The twins are perfectly healthy," she said, adjusting the screen so they could see better. "Strong heartbeats, normal measurements for 10 weeks, no signs of distress whatsoever." The sound filled the room. 2 rapid heartbeats, slightly out of sync, like distant thunder. Elena's sob was immediate and raw. "You're sure?" Julian asked, voice breaking. "Completely sure?" Dr. Moreau pointed to the screen. "Baby A here, baby B here, both exactly where they should be. Your adrenaline didn't cross the placental barrier enough to harm them. Babies are remarkably resilient in utero, especially this early in development." Julian buried his face in Elena's shoulder, and she felt his tears hot against her skin. Her own streamed freely, relief so profound it felt like drowning and surfacing all at once. Dr. Moreau completed the rest of the examination. Elena's blood pressure was elevated but manageable. No bleeding, no cramping. She prescribed rest, hydration, and a follow-up appointment in 2 days, then quietly left them alone. The hospital room settled into stillness. Elena stared at the ceiling, processing everything. Julian sat on the edge of her bed, still holding her hand, like it was the only thing anchoring him to earth. "That night," Elena said softly, "I told myself it was just reckless, that I was running away from responsibility." Julian looked at her, exhausted, tear-stained, beautiful. "What do you think now?" I think maybe I was running toward something. She met his eyes. Toward you. Toward this. His other hand rested gently on her belly, where the twins were safe, where those 2 heartbeats continued their steady rhythm. Toward us. She touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. I'm terrified. I don't know how to do this. Be a mother. Be a partner. Build something real from one night. Neither do I. He leaned his forehead against hers, their breath mingling. But Elena, I'm in love with you. I think I have been since that first night when you laughed at my terrible attempt at flirting. She laughed through tears. It was pretty terrible. I know this isn't a fairy tale. It's messy and complicated and started in the worst possible way. His thumb brushed her cheek. But I choose you. Every day I choose you. You and our babies. Will you let me? Elena was crying fully now, but her smile was radiant. Yes. Yes, I choose you too. They kissed, tender and deep, a promise being made without words. Outside, Monaco glittered in the darkness, the city that had brought them together in recklessness and chaos. But here, in this quiet hospital room, they were building something different. Julian pulled back from the kiss, his eyes bright with something that looked like nervousness. I have something. It's not much, but... He reached into his jacket pocket, and when he opened his hand, Elena saw a black and gold casino chip from the Grand Casino. I went back the next day, he said quietly. Tracked down which chip you'd been playing with while we talked. You kept spinning it on the bar, remember? Your fingers tapping against it every time you laughed. Elena's breath caught. She remembered. She'd been fidgeting with it all night, a nervous habit when she was trying not to be too obvious about how attracted she was to the stranger beside her. The bartender thought I was crazy, but I found it. I've been carrying it ever since. She took the chip with trembling fingers, turning it over in the dim hospital light. There on the edge was the faintest mark of burgundy lipstick, the shade she'd worn that night, evidence of a moment when she'd pressed it to her lips absently while he'd been ordering them another round. You kept this? Her voice broke. For 6 weeks? Not knowing if you'd ever see me again? I kept hoping I'd have a reason to give it back to you. He took the chip from her hand, turned it over. On the back, newly engraved in elegant script, were the words, E. Poinche, 1 night, forever. Elena's heart stopped. Julian slid off the bed, and despite the hospital setting, despite everything they'd been through in the past 12 hours, he knelt beside her. Marry me, Elena. Not for the company, not for appearances, not because of the babies. His voice was rough with emotion. Marry me because I want to spend every sunrise and every midnight with you, because you make me laugh and challenge me and make me want to be better, because that one reckless night was the best decision I ever made, and I want a lifetime of choosing you. Elena was sobbing happy tears, her hand covering her mouth. That's the worst proposal speech ever. He laughed, the sound breaking with relief and joy. I know, I'm nervous. Yes? She pulled him up, pulled him close. Yes, I'll marry you, even with your terrible speeches. They kissed again, both laughing and crying, tasting salt and joy, and the future stretching out before them. The casino chip pressed between their joined hands, a token of the night that changed everything. A soft knock interrupted them. Claire appeared at the door, and she wasn't alone. Behind her, someone in a wheelchair smiled at them with tears streaming down her face. Sophia. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Her sister wheeled herself forward, stronger than the last time Elena had seen her, color back in her cheeks. Did he finally do it? You brought her here? Elena looked at Julian in wonder. Claire arranged it, Julian said. I called her when we were in the ambulance. Sophia was already on a plane. Private jet, Claire added, with medical staff on board. She's cleared for travel now that her real insurance is restored, and those fraudulent charges are being reversed. Sophia wheeled herself to the bedside, taking Elena's free hand. Did you say yes? I did. Good, Sophia beamed. Because, Elle, you deserve this. You deserve everything. After all you've done for me, after all you've sacrificed, you deserve someone who looks at you the way he does. Elena pulled her sister into a hug, careful of the IV still in her arm. You're okay, really okay. Getting there. The treatment's working. And thanks to your investigation, my medical debt is being cleared. The Identity Theft Victims Fund is covering everything. Sophia pulled back, eyes serious. You saved my life twice over. Claire cleared her throat. Also, Interpol wants to offer you a position as a consultant on financial crimes, and the banking authority wants to give you an award for your work on this case. There's talk of a parliamentary hearing about identity theft protections. Elena looked overwhelmed. Can we just have a moment, just us? Claire smiled, genuine warmth in her expression. Of course. Congratulations, both of you. And Elena, welcome to the chaos. She winked at Julian. He's terrible at proposals, but he makes excellent coffee, and he's surprisingly good at chess. After they left, promising to check in tomorrow, Julian climbed onto the hospital bed beside Elena, carefully arranging himself so he wasn't jostling her. His hands rested on her belly, feeling the twins safe beneath. Girls or boys? She asked softly. I don't care, as long as they have your brains and don't inherit my terrible flirting. She laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in weeks. What if they have your stubbornness? Then we're in trouble. His thumb traced gentle circles over her stomach. We're going to need a bigger place. My apartment isn't exactly baby-proofed, or twin-proofed. We'll figure it out. She covered his hands with hers. When should we do this? The wedding? Soon. Before I'm too pregnant to fit in a dress? He smiled against her hair. We could do it at the cliffs. I want to show you the sunrise from there. It's all open sky and ocean. It's beautiful. She nodded, imagining it. Perfect. Small. Just us and the people we love. No press, no performance. Just real, he agreed, kissing her temple. They sat together in the quiet hospital room, listening to the soft beep of monitors and the distant sounds of the harbor outside. The casino chip sat on the bedside table, catching the light. One night had become forever, and somehow, impossibly, it felt exactly right. Julian? Elena's voice was drowsy, exhaustion finally catching up with her. I'm glad I ordered that expensive wine. He laughed quietly, holding her closer. Best money you ever spent. Second best, she corrected, already drifting toward sleep. The best was the plane ticket to Monaco. As she fell asleep in his arms, Julian stared at the casino chip and smiled. One night in Monte Carlo had given him everything he didn't know he was missing. A partner, a family, a future built on something real. And it all started with a woman who dared to be reckless. 6 months after the wedding, Elena woke to the sound of soft crying. Not the twins, though they'd surely join the chorus soon. This was deeper, rougher. She found Julian in the nursery of their new villa, standing between two cribs, holding both daughters against his chest. Emilia and Elise, 8 weeks old, impossibly tiny in their father's arms. He was crying, shoulders shaking with silent sobs, pressing kisses to their downy heads. Julian? Elena's voice was gentle. He looked up, tears streaming freely. They're so small, so perfect. I keep thinking about how close I came to never knowing them, never knowing you. She crossed to him, wrapping her arms around all 3 of them. But you do know us. We're here. We're real. He kissed her, tasting salt and joy. I love you. God, I love you so much. Elena looked at him. This man who'd been a stranger 9 months ago. The reckless choice that became her husband, the father of her children, the person she chose every single day. I love you too. Elise started fussing, her tiny face scrunching in pre-cry warning. Julian laughed, bouncing gently. Okay. Breakfast time. I know. They settled into the familiar rhythm of feeding, burping, changing. Elena watched Julian with their daughters and felt her heart expand impossibly. He sang to them softly, terrible off-key lullabies that somehow worked every time. The doorbell chimed. Sophia breezed in, vibrant and healthy, color back in her cheeks and strength in her movements. The experimental treatment had worked. She was in remission. "Where are my girls?" Sophia called out, making grabby hands for Amelia. "Your girls?" Julian protested, but handed over his daughter with practiced care. Sophia settled into the rocking chair, cooing at her niece. "I'm the favorite auntie. It's already established." She looked up at Elena, eyes shining. "They're beautiful. You made beautiful babies." "We did," Julian corrected, pulling Elena against his side. Claire arrived an hour later with coffee and news. Victor and Isabel's sentencing came through. 25 years for Victor, 22 for Isabel. No possibility of parole for the first 10. Elena felt vindication settle in her chest. And the victim's restitution fund is distributing recovered assets. Over 1,800 families getting their lives back. Claire smiled. "You did that." "We all did," Elena said. Claire turned to Julian. "The board approved your restructuring proposal. Thorn Global is officially transitioning primary focus from gaming operations to sustainable tech and luxury hospitality. Stock prices are up 12%. Julian looked around the room. His wife holding their daughter, Sophia rocking the other twin, Claire who'd become family rather than just staff. "Best decision I ever made." "Leaving the casino business?" Claire asked. "No." He kissed Elena's temple. "Ordering scotch at a bar and talking to a stranger." Elena laughed. "Second best decision. First was not running when I told you about the twins." "Never," he promised. Outside, Monaco glittered in the afternoon sun. The city of second chances had given them both exactly that. And this time, they weren't leaving anything to chance. The end. "Hey, readers," Elena ordered one drink and found forever. What if your one click to subscribe brings you hundreds of amazing stories that keep you hooked? Subscribe now to join the family so you don't miss out on my next story. Also, check out the pinned comment. Let's have a little interaction. Here's hoping I see you in my next story. Lots of love.